Hello, everybody. So, what is going on in Tennessee? It took me about all day to piece all of this together. Sebastian Rogers. Who is searching for Sebastian Rogers? And how is it being organized? What's going on with the United Cajun Navy? Are they scam artists? What's going on with JLR? Is he now in Mississippi stalking the Proudfoots? And, are the police doing anything? Right. I'm just hearing so many different things. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on here that I find really interesting. Like I've said before in other videos, I really try to withhold judgment on people and just all sorts of things because I just learned over time that you just never know what's going on in somebody else's life. And, if you try to put yourself in their shoes, you want to really try to give those people grace and patience, right? So let's just start with an update. And I found this once again on Facebook, the place least likely you'll ever find me. This was a post made from Nick Barris. He's a local correspondent on CBS there in Gallatin, Tennessee. It's an article he published, and he writes, "It's been 1 month since Sebastian Rogers went missing from his Hendersonville home, and there have been a few updates from authorities since that time. But what's still being done to find the boy? I was granted full access to the Sumner County Emergency Operations Center to find out. This is the first time a reporter has been inside it to see what's been done to find the teen. This is the system we use to track all of our searchers," said Ken Widener, director of Sumner County EMA. He showed me the sophisticated search mapping system. From the beginning, he has spearheaded the official search for Sebastian. The investigation is still active, he said. It was nonstop during the first 8 days after the teen with autism disappeared without a trace. The professional search effort has since been scaled back, though. Widener appreciates volunteers continuing to follow their leads. "I'm not going to beat up psychics, but we have to vet what we do before we do it," he said. Widener said his EMA team follows up on credible leads from law enforcement. "Anytime the sheriff or TBI says we need to deploy, we go. We are ready to go," he said. And this sophisticated mapping system in the Emergency Operations Center shows they've been busy. There's a report of bones found, and they go. "We checked that out. It was deer bones." Divers and spelunkers have been deployed to area ponds and sinkholes. The white dots are caves, and they've all been searched. They've looked in every storm drain within a half a mile of Sebastian's home. Some have wondered about the home itself. That house was searched at least 10 times. Dogs, yes. Widener says bloodhounds and cadaver dogs were used. None of them were ever on the trail of Sebastian. To date, it's as though the boy simply vanished. Have you found evidence of Sebastian out there yourself? No, he replied. As busy as this map is, there are still areas to be checked, and no one is giving up. To date, Sumner County EMA has deployed more than 1,400 trained search personnel to look for Sebastian. Tips can be called into the 1-800 TBI find. And so it was really interesting to read this article. And then if you go onto Facebook and see Nick Barris's page, and it's spelled Beres, you can see a segment that he does. And you can see this gentleman, Mr. Widener, who looks very, very upset and sad. And he shows you they've covered, it looks like a 12,000 square miles of footage surrounding the home. They've gone into, like he said, sinkholes, drain pipes. They've had spelunkers in caves. I mean, they're really searching. They've done a lot of search area. really in the first 8 days, but they've continued to send people out when they're getting tips. So people who may be saying, what are the cops doing? What's the sheriff doing? What are these people doing? They are still actively investigating any tips they're getting. And, it's not like they haven't done anything, I guess is what they're saying. And people are frustrated. I think a couple things in this article stood out to me and may have stood out to you. For example, this one right here, where he says, that they investigate all credible tips. Then he says, I'm just out of the blue. He says, I'm not going to beat up psychics, but we have to vet what we do before we do it. And so he brings up a psychic, and then immediately following that, he says, there's a report of bones found, and we checked that out. It was deer bones. And so this just brings up a point, which is the day that I think a lot of the drama surrounding this search for Sebastian started was on Saturday. And Saturday is when the United Cajun Navy showed up. And that was with Seth Moore, the biological father of Sebastian. And he was with the United Cajun Navy, and JLR was also present, right? So they all go to the Rockland Recreation Center, which is federal property. It was closed, and I believe it's been closed for some time now since that tornado came through and knocked down a bunch of trees. We could see it if you were watching it, a ton of trees and power lines, and they hit on something. Now, it looked like it was just an area that was cleared, and people said they had seen some bones. I didn't see any bones, but I did see the dog sit down. Regardless, they hit on something, right? And then everyone thought it was Sebastian or something, and then we don't hear anything. So then the next thing we hear is this United Cajun Navy guy on Nancy Grace, and he's saying it was a homeless person. And then we find out from somebody on, I think it was on Facebook, I saw a post from someone named SF Investigates, that's not true, that he called the police and they said it wasn't a homeless person and that they're liars and fraudsters. Okay, so let's just stop there and backtrack. I don't know who SF Investigates is. I don't know if he's telling the truth. So I'm not going to believe it's a homeless person, but I'm also not going to believe SF Investigates, okay? But this guy right here, Mr. Widener, he does work for EMA, the state of Tennessee. And I'm going to say, this is my theory, that some psychic told the biological father, Seth Rogers, that there may be something at the Rockland Recreation Center. And then maybe Seth's father spoke with the United Cajun Navy, and they decided after using a drone or something that they could go and look there. And so they did, but they didn't get the proper authority to do so. And then the dog hit on something and they found bones. And then when they checked out the bones happened to be deer bones. This is my theory. No way to base this on any fact, but that's what makes the most sense to me. I do think it's a shame that police and local authorities are being crapped on, because it sounds like they've done quite a lot of work and continue to do quite a lot of work. The other thing that Nick Bear says, he does do a live on Facebook. And like I said, you could go on Facebook if you venture over there, if you dare, to have all of your information recorded. He talks about how, the parents, the stepfather and the mother are being harassed and being called suspects and et cetera, and that the police do not consider them suspects at this time. And that, he basically sort of defends the parents, and he thinks it's a shame that, some people were sort of yelling at them at their house, et cetera, And, the fact that it's been a month and then this guy's got to go work or something, people are now following them. We all know who he's talking about, right? So, I kind of get that, I also understand why they look suspicious. I get that too. But like, how are you supposed to act when your child goes missing? Everybody says, I would do this, I would do that. And I agree. I probably wouldn't act that way. I hope I never have to find out how I would act if a loved one goes missing like that, right? In terms of him saying they're not a suspect, I mean, I think everyone who's like a close family member is probably a suspect still until things get resolved. But they're clearly not a major suspect, or some sort of arrest would have been made, because they want to solve this just as much as everybody else. This is causing a big uproar in that little town. And so it's just something to think about, Regardless, let's talk a little bit more about JLR and the United Cajun Navy. So JLR the first day was fine with the United Cajun Navy, right? That's who was there, I'm pretty certain, with Seth's father at the Rockland Recreation Center. And he was live streaming and everything. And then the next day, they stepped back for whatever reason. We don't really know. Okay. I can't get any verification if UCN is working with Ellie or not, but I would imagine that Ellie is aware that UCN is there, right? And actually, I believe the commissioner did make a statement. The district commissioner at some point made a statement that, UCN is there. So I think that they are aware that they're there. And then UCN, I published this on my last live. They said that they were forming a rally point for volunteers, and they were asking for donations. And apparently they had to change it from one location to a bowling alley. And then before they got to that rally point, JLR, I saw a post on JLR's page where I think he might have taken this down, but he still has it up on his Twitter, in which he said he was over by the Proudfoot's home and that someone boxed him in. They were following him or something. And so he pulled over and they started recording him. And so he called the police on them and made a report against these people. And then he later found out that these people were the parents of Christopher Proudfoot. Okay. So I later was listening to a Cluminati live in which she said that the cops were actually called on JLR. So it was the exact opposite of what JLR said, right? And it actually made a lot more sense what Cluminati said, because the Twitter post that JLR showed pictures of was these people, the Proudfoots, I'm assuming, in front of JLR, not behind him, in front of him, taking a picture of him, which is what it would look like if JLR was actually following them and they were irritated and stopped their car and got out and took a picture of him, right? Which makes a hell of a lot more sense to me anyway. So, that's kind of interesting, right? Now, either way, okay, if he wants to follow these people, okay, he's a journalist trying to get a story. He's following them, trying to ask them questions. Okay, fair game. But if they ask him to stop, then, maybe you should just stop, right? At some point, they don't want to talk to you, so it's time to leave. I just thought it was interesting, the difference in the storytelling. I'm not calling him a liar. I'm just saying the story is different than there's two different stories there, unless two different things happened. I don't know. And then later in the day, I heard we heard from JLR where he was really upset with the United Cajun Navy. And I mean, he was just he was popping off. All right. He's just popping off, calling them fraudsters and saying that they're just scamming and people should just be looking them up because they've been sued and all of this stuff. Right. And so I just felt really terrible because I had put out these other two videos telling people, they have this rally point and they're asking for donations, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought I had done proper vetting. I looked them up. They're a 501c3 foundation. They're nonprofit. I hadn't seen anything about it. And so, he showed this guy. He said, this guy is impersonating another guy. He's using two different names. Now, before I go on to the rest of this story, let's just stop right there. And JLR, sorry, but this is just facts, so you can't sue me for this, okay? JLR accusing someone of impersonating somebody let's just be honest. That's hilarious, okay? I mean, it's hilarious because JLR, in fact, he broke his parole in 2012 and drove to the site of Newtown, Connecticut, and impersonated, allegedly, the uncle of the shooter, okay, Adam Lanza, in a news conference. He got arrested because he had broken his parole. So he impersonated someone. So JLR himself impersonated someone. So, and now he's getting mad because this person is impersonating someone, allegedly. So, I mean, come on. So anyway, people can change, right? Everybody can change. And JLR does a lot of really good work. So it's just kind of hilarious for him to get that upset about somebody impersonating someone when, like, you consider what he's done. So let's talk about United Cajun Navy, okay? And where are these people coming from? Who are they? Well, the Cajun Navy, the original Cajun Navy, started after Hurricane Katrina, and it was just kind of a loose group of people who had boats who formed. They were just citizens who formed to help other people who needed help during catastrophes and natural disasters, etc. And they got bigger and bigger, and then they formed a nonprofit organization. And then other people started using that name and, in fact, did scam people. But the United Cajun Navy, I couldn't really find anything about them in particular that scammed anyone. Although I did find where they had to go to court to stop people from bad-mouthing their name. So I'll just read this article briefly. United Cajun Navy hearings ignite after potential criminal allegation raised in court. And this is from December 2019. United Cajun Navy President Todd Terrell said the organization is dead in the water after 8 people cyberstalked and harassed him and scared off potential donors and volunteers during back-to-back court hearings. Thursday, December 5th. The hearings began just after 10 a.m. and lasted until the close of business day. During the hearing, Judge Kelly heard testimony from Terrell. For all 8 cases, Terrell and his attorney persuaded Judge Kelly to expand temporary protective orders against the 8 people, all linked to a Facebook group called Cajun Navy WikiLeaks, into permanent restraining orders. Terrell testified these 8 individuals allegedly orchestrated posts in the group to promote smear campaigns against the United Cajun Navy. Terrell claims the tactics included using potentially stolen and falsified evidence to dissuade potential volunteers and donors from supporting the group. He went on to testify the 8 individuals at various points contacted law enforcement agencies in the area where UCN was serving to make false complaints. As the hearings dragged on, Terrell testified the harassment got so bad he was forced to file the temporary protective orders against the individuals, to the point that I just want to give up, said Terrell. Terrell went on to testify that harassment even extended to his family members and other loved ones. My parents had to change their number after 2 years, said Terrell. I mean, this is sad, guys. This United Cajun Navy guy. And this kind of sounds like what's starting to happen here now. You know? So he did get a restraining order against these people. Eventually, he continued. He went and took them to court again in 2021. And they were able to resolve their differences. And this group that was against them, they were forced to take all these horrible things that they had on their page about the United Cajun Navy off their page because they weren't true. They were forced to take them all off their page. So I couldn't find anything to support the fact that the United Cajun Navy are fraudsters. Now, people might not like the fact that they're not answering questions, or they might not like the fact that they canceled the search today. But the reality is, I guess it was pretty windy there. I don't know. I don't live there. Some people on Facebook were yelling at them saying it was sprinkling. I don't know. But I think because it's an organization or a foundation and they have you sign up and they get your information and stuff, it's because you're under their umbrella, right? And so if you get hurt, you're under their care. They're liable. So they just want people to be safe, right? So they're going to cancel if it's windy or something. It's just the way it is. So if you want to go with them, you have to go under their rules. Doesn't mean you can't go on your own. You just can't go with them. So, I don't think it's any reason to get upset with them. It's just you just don't go under their rules. People go on their own today, but if it's raining and stuff, you might not want to do it anyway. I don't know what the weather was like. Are they fraudsters? Maybe. I don't see any evidence for it just yet. And just because JLR says it, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to just believe it. Now, there was another guy, Dolly Vision, who he didn't like it either because I guess some guy saw him pull up and was like, get out of here or something, which was hilarious. That guy's hilarious. I probably would have reacted the same way Dolly Vision did. Like, what do you mean get out of here? Like, you told me to come here and you're yelling at me or whatever. Like, could you politely talk to me and explain to me what's going on here? So that was a little bit strange too. So I don't know. It's yet to be seen, but there's just a lot of cagey stuff going on there. Regardless, the sheriff and TBI and EMA are all still actively investigating this case. They are happy that people are volunteering. They're aware of the UCN and their efforts. And I hope that people are still going to organize and go out and volunteer and search. If you don't trust an organization, you're not going to donate to them. And so don't donate to them. But certainly if you want to go out and search, people should still do that. In terms of, where Sebastian is, it's just really strange. I mean, we don't know, right? It sounds like from what they found so far, there really was no scent picked up. We heard different things. We heard that it was to the lake on the property. They drained it and there was nothing there. But from what I gather, it really wasn't even a strong scent there. So it's just a really, really bizarre case. Like he essentially did vanish into thin air. And then I'll admit it is odd, the way that the mother is behaving. And it's hard to not become suspicious. and the way that the stepfather's behaving. It's hard to not become suspicious because it's easier if you have someone to blame and then you can punish the person and then you can have resolution and move on. But so far, it doesn't look like they found any evidence to prove that. And so we just have to wait and see. So anyway, those are my thoughts, guys, my speculations, some of the facts that I found out about the case and what's going on. It does sound like the local authorities are very much actively investigating this case. I think the only thing that would help matters is if maybe, I get it, they can't have a press conference every day, but people certainly are very invested in helping in that community, which I think just says a lot about that community and how much they care. So it might be helpful if they just had a press conference and just clarified a few things one more time and discussed, how people can help. I think that would make things so much easier for everyone because otherwise people have to dig into different social media accounts and try to figure out on their own who's a scammer, who's not a scammer, who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth. And there's a lot of places to look to try to figure it out. And it makes it hard for people. And then you have to determine if you think I'm credible or if you think this person's credible or that person's credible. And at the end of the day, it's like, who do you trust, right? Cluminati is probably the best source on this case. She lives there and she does true crime. So, I think she's really, if anybody's going to find this kid, it's going to be her. That's my opinion. But regardless, that's my 2 cents. I just hope and pray they find this boy alive and well. And that's it for tonight, guys. I'll still be watching and keeping an eye on this stuff. So take care.